Hi folks, brand new camera. Hopefully you can see a dramatic increase in the quality compared to the usual videos that I put out. There was a sale with Amazon Prime, so I was able to pick this up at a discount, and hopefully this will be my camera from now on, not that horrible webcam that I've been using for many years. So anyway, let's start by talking about iUniverse. Now, what on earth is iUniverse? You'll know what that is if you've been on my channel for many years. It's a book I wrote. I started it a long time ago, 10 years ago actually, 9 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago was basically when I had my eyes opened to the nature of reality and the nature of consciousness, as it were. Some people call these events a spiritual awakening, but for various reasons, and that's not really a term that I like. But something definitely happened to me 10 years ago. 2008, summer 2008, yeah. So this is my 10th anniversary of my spiritual awakening. 1 year into that journey, I decided to write a book. And that book became this one, Reality Check. And it's about, what is it, I think it's 50,000 words, which is 160 something pages. And I think it looks well. At the time I thought I was doing something really great. And I did read parts of it recently, and it holds up reasonably well, but there's parts of it that kind of make me go, you know. So anyway, I self-published the book 2009, and it did quite well, sold about 300 copies over the years. And I decided, first of all, that I was going to release some bonus chapters for people who bought the book. So, because I realized there's more I wanted to say. I was only 1 year past this spiritual awakening. Okay, so I wanted to say, I was learning more things. I wanted to express more ideas. So bonus chapters was the first thing that happened. And then, as time went on, I started to become dissatisfied with parts of the book, and I realized they needed rewritten. So I started rewriting parts of the book. And at some point, I had to decide whether I was going to bring out another book, like a sequel, or whether I was going to just try and revise the original edition somehow and incorporate the new chapters. So, because I was unhappy with some of the content, that's the option I went for. And I made so many changes to the original text. I think there's probably about 30,000 out of the original 50,000 words that still exists in the book. But the amount of extra content, the total word count is over 120,000 words. So it really isn't the same book anymore, and the new title is I, Universe. In other words, your identity, your fundamental identity, is the universe, not something separate from the universe. Well, we're not going to get into the ins and outs of non-duality right now in this video. Just want to talk to you about the book. So if 30,000 of the words are the original words, and the total word count is 120, that means there's 90,000 words in the book that are different from the original Reality Check, right? So it's essentially a different book. It's not a sequel to Reality Check, it's a replacement for this book. I still have spare copies of this book. I have over 100 spare copies, and I don't even want to sell them. That's the way I feel about it. Even though, you know, it's okay as a book, I'm my own worst critic, and I can't stand the fact that there's things in it that I've changed my mind about, even though the core message about non-duality is pretty much the same. But iUniverse is where it's at for me. Now, I had a version of iUniverse complete by about 2012, and I released it as an ebook, and I think it was about 80 or 90,000 words long at the time. So it was just a freebie for people. I didn't have a publishing contract or anything. And then around, well, the date was on it, 2014, I got into conversation with a guy called Daniel from Skylight Press, and I wondered whether his company would be interested in the book, so I gave him the text, and he was very interested, and they offered me a contract. So there is a commitment from them to publish that book and a commitment from me to supply it. So I will link the company's website below, by the way, so you can go check them out. Around 2014 then, my book was in a queue, and this queue was visible on the front page of their site, so I could tell that there was about 10 titles ahead of mine still to be published. So one by one more books came out, and it was exciting for me to see my book climb up the queue. But then the company seemed to go quiet for, I think, over a period, I think maybe at least a year went past without any titles being published. And I got kind of worried. I wasn't worried that, that they were going to betray the contract. I was more worried just that the company might go under. But I kept in touch with Daniel, and he assured me that things were going to move ahead. So at the moment, basically a couple of months ago, Daniel asked me for the final text of iUniverse, and I supplied it. And my title is now at the top of the queue, and you'll see that if you go to the Skylight Press site. That means that iUniverse is the next title to be published. They haven't given me a date, but realistically, I would be surprised if the book was not out by the end of the year. So, very exciting. I'll give you a quick rundown of the content of the book and how it's structured, just while I'm talking about it. It's basically divided into 3 sections. Now, my guess is that the book will be over 300 pages long, judging by the fact that that one's 160 pages and it's 50,000 words. So we are talking about over 300 pages. The 3 sections of the book are roughly equal in size. The first one is called Reality Check. Not because it's a copy of this book, just because those words are the perfect words for what I'm talking about in part 1 of the book, which is you need a reality check. We all need a reality check. We need to question the sense of reality that was implanted to us in our early years. So it's all about a discussion of the various mind games of religion, and it's also a discussion about the purely secular mindset that doesn't have any time for any notions of the transcendent in its thinking. It tries to get the reader past the idea that you only have 2 options. One being the monotheistic God with all the trappings of organized religion, and the other being the purely accidental, mundane, naturalistic universe. No. There are more than just these 2 extreme polarities. So once that's out of the way, part 2 is called Deep Dive, and that's where we get to grips with non-duality, with looking at the nature of reality, getting past our notions that the 3-dimensional world that we see in front of us is fundamentally real, getting past ideas that consciousness is like a thing inside the head, an actual unit, an entity, getting past the idea that time is laid out like a sort of film strip that has all these different frames, questioning the basic intuitions about reality that we all inherit either through culture or just because it's a kind of understandable mistake that the human organism makes. And by the end of that, I've hopefully made a very strong case for non-duality, and also for the sort of psychological and even moral benefits that non-duality can offer a person. Now, the book could end at that point, but there's a whole other story to tell beyond that point, and that is part 3, which is entitled Uncharted Territory. And it's here where I get into parapsychology and the occult. There was a chapter in Reality Check on parapsychology because I had done my experiments with psychokinesis at that point, and I had obtained positive results, and I was certain that there was something going on with that. So that is all developed in iUniverse. All that stuff about psychokinesis is there, but it led me naturally to a fascination also with the occult and with the idea that ritual magic might be in the same sort of ballpark as ESP and psychokinesis. They might essentially be the same sort of thing in kind of dressed up differently. And so there's a good 100 pages or more on that material. I suppose it's kind of, you know, some people may be very uncomfortable that I've investigated the occult, but I'm doing it purely as an investigator with a scientific mindset. You know, not approaching this as some sort of weird, power-hungry magician who wants to dominate other people. It's not like that at all. And interestingly, Dean Radin, who is one of my favorite authors on parapsychology, his most recent book is called Real Magic, and I've yet to read it, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've read his other 3 books, which are The Conscious Universe, Entangled Minds, and Supernormal. It's really interesting that he's now gone in the same direction that my dabbling took me, to an examination of magic in history and the idea that there's something to it. Yeah. So hopefully in there I've made some small contribution to occult thinking. Maybe. I don't know. The readers will be the judge. So that's iUniverse. I hope you're interested in it. It'll be coming out soon. Have a little look below on Skylight Press. Come on, Skylight Press. Let's get the book out. I should say, by the way, that I'm not annoyed in the slightest by the 4-year delay that there has been in bringing the book out, because it has really allowed me to refine the text. I haven't just sat on my laurels for the past 4 years waiting for them to publish it. I've been reading it and rereading it and tweaking it, and reading more books and then tweaking the text again to adjust it with new things that I've learned, to augment my arguments, to strengthen them. It's a far better book today than it would have been if it was published 2 years ago. So no resentment at all, but it's time to get moving. All right, folks, take care.